Federal President, Angus, members of the Federal Executive, parliamentary colleagues, delegates and friends. It's an extraordinary privilege to address this council as the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party, a party I am so proud to belong to, the party of freedom and choice and personal responsibility and individual enterprise, of family and small business, and to quote Robert Menzies, as all good party members do, we are the party of salary earners, of shopkeepers, of skilled artisans, professional men and women and farmers, the strivers, the planners, the ambitious ones. The party of Menzies, of Fraser and of Howard, the party of Abbott, of Turnbull and of Morrison, the party of Rockcliffe, of Crisafulli, of Finocchiaro, and the party of Hearn, of Sloane and of Wilson. One party of unity and fire. This is a position that I take with such a deep sense of responsibility and gravity, and particularly at this time, one of the most serious for our party and for our country. I'm honoured that you have all travelled to my home state of Victoria, and as you would expect, as a senator, I am a proud and, let's face it, even parochial Victorian. But sadly, my state is a cautionary tale. You need not walk far from here to see what a corrupt and incompetent Labor government can do to a once prosperous city and state. Rampant union corruption on building sites, crime that goes unpunished, a bloated public sector but corroded public services, an economy that burdens businesses and families with punitive taxes and future generations with unserviceable levels of debt. My state is an object lesson. A lesson of the dangers of a Labor government that is content to sacrifice the economy, grow the state, and shrink the citizen. So long as political patrons and union mates are comfortable, the rest of us are forgotten people. I know this from experience, and I've told this story before. I left Melbourne University in 1992, proudly clutching my commerce degree under my arm, all the requisite grit and persistence ready to join the workforce. Nothing but a ponytail and a dream. But I walked straight into Paul Keating's recession that we had to have. Pyramid Building Society, Tricontinental, State Bank of Victoria. The economy here had tanked. Insolvencies were daily news. Commercial properties were empty. Double-digit interest rates crippled businesses and households, and house prices were in freefall. It was a harsh welcome to adulthood. I couldn't get a job, but neither could those that I graduated with, because no one was hiring. Cadetships and graduate programs were pared right back, but so were jobs in retail, in hospitality and in trade. Youth unemployment in Victoria was over 30%. It was an unemployment rate not seen since the Great Depression. It was a scarring experience for my generation, and many of my friends moved away, moved overseas where their prospects were better for the young and ambitious, and some of them never came home. At the time, they called it Labor's great brain drain. Labor's economic management, or mismanagement, had mortgaged our youthful optimism and spent it on a future without hope. And I say to all of you that are here today, walk out through the Melbourne CBD and you can see the warning signs. History is repeating. For lease signs and abandoned shops. Vacancy rates in the CBD here have risen 6% since last year alone, and nearly 1 in 5 Melbourne properties are empty. And why would you want to start a business here? Our payroll, our stamp duty, our land taxes are exorbitant. Our roads and our infrastructure are crumbling, and crime is everywhere. It's in our homes, on our streets, in our shopping strips and on our building sites. Fire bombings, home invasions, knife crime, drugs, bikies, extortion, vandalism. And what is worse is that victims can't even expect our police to deliver justice. Nearly half of all crimes in Victoria went unsolved last year. Nearly 2/3 of crimes committed in the CBD went unsolved. That's a record high. As the comedian Dave Hughes has said, what is the point in paying tax when you know it's going to be stolen by criminals because the government is so effing useless? And when people do call it out as woke, broke and violent, just as Beck Judd has, you have Labor use the power that people trusted them with to try and silence dissent. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. It's a decline that occurs when bad governments fail our people. It happens when politicians back bureaucracy rather than backing Australians. It happens when politicians are led by convenience rather than conviction. But Liberal friends, all is not lost. I want to finish my cautionary tale with a message of hope. Because Liberal governments can deliver a pathway back to prosperity and to hope. It was the election of Jeff Kennett and the Victorian Liberal Party in late 1992, and then federally the election of John Howard in 1996 that heralded a genuine shift in the prospects of my generation. Opportunities began to reappear, opportunities for more meaningful employment and career choices, opportunities to save and to invest, to take risks. Opportunities to start a family, start a business, buy a home, build a life. It wasn't coincidence. Liberal governments were not just custodians of that transformation, they were the drivers of it. Liberals have always believed in the power of economic freedoms to deliver prosperity. That aspiration and that ambition lift all of us higher. My generation were the beneficiaries of that Liberal tradition, and I was Exhibit A, a citizen well served who flourished under good government. And that's what made me a Liberal. And I will be forever grateful to those leaders, to those policymakers, those giants of our party, for that first foot in the door, for the career trajectory that followed, a first home, a family, choices, opportunities. And now I want all of those things for my kids, all of them now in their early 20s and starting out on their lives. But as smart and as hardworking as they are, with all the gifts of a supporting and loving family and a great education, they can't see how they will get ahead. And I understand that despair, but I also know that it can be different. And I know that it won't be under Labor. Labor promised cheaper mortgages, cheaper power, higher real wages, but instead, Australians have received higher prices, higher taxes, and lower living standards. Labor has spent too much, they have taxed too much, they have regulated too much. Labor has treated productivity as a talking point rather than a discipline. And Labor has allowed the public sector to bloat, while the private sector has floundered. The result is a country where effort is less rewarded, investment is less attractive, and confidence is harder to sustain. As Liberals, we know and understand the role of government. We must keep Australians safe, protect the vulnerable, provide essential services, and maintain the conditions for prosperity. And importantly, it must respect that its purpose is to serve Australians, not control them. Every dollar that a government spends is a dollar first earned by an Australian. Every new tax has a cost. Every new regulation has a consequence. And every new burden on business eventually falls on workers, consumers, and families. No wonder young Australians are asking whether home ownership is still realistic, whether they can still get ahead. They see a country that is rich in resources, talent and enterprise, yet constrained by housing shortages, by energy uncertainty and expanding regulation and taxes. They see a government that speaks often about fairness but leaves them with debt, scarcity and diminished aspiration. And that is the deepest failure of Labor's approach. It weakens the economy it narrows opportunity, and it erodes hope. A country does not become fairer by making it harder to build homes. It does not become more prosperous by punishing investment. And it does not become more compassionate by leaving the next generation with higher debt and fewer choices. That is why Liberal values matter. Enterprise creates wealth, responsibility sustains community, and opportunity gives purpose to a generation, and prosperity is built from the ground up through work, through investment, and through ambition. We believe that strong communities are built by families and volunteers and local institutions, not by distant bureaucracies. And we believe that Australia's future depends on a government that trusts its citizens, respects their efforts, and rewards their contribution. That is the Liberal tradition. We are not a party of grievance or protest. We are a party of prosperity. And we are not untried. We are not untested. We have delivered prosperity to generations past, and we can and we will deliver it again to generations ahead. Our next generation is looking at the future with more anxiety than confidence, and we as Liberals must be there for them. As Robert Menzies said, the future is not only within your power, but within your responsibility. One party of unity and fire. And all of us must take up this fight. Labor's toxic taxes are an assault on aspiration and an intergenerational fraud. And we must fight them every way and every day. Now, Labor has given us a galvanising mission, but Liberals are only at their best, not just when we have something to fight against, but when we have something to fight for. We must fight for this. We must fight to protect our way of life and to restore our standard of living. And our Liberal government, led by Angus Taylor, will deliver a freer and fairer and better Australia to this generation and to the next. We will back small businesses, the ambitious self-starters who are the engine rooms of our prosperity. We will support the individual who takes risks and invests and builds wealth for their future. And we will be there for Australian families who want choice and opportunity, a place to call home and to keep more of what they earn. We will unshackle the private sector to create a competitive and thriving economy, and we will keep Australians safe, rebuild trust in our public institutions, our public sector, our defence, and our national security. And we will take fiscal responsibility seriously, not as some abstract value, but as a moral commitment to the next generation, because Liberals believe that young Australians deserve to inherit opportunity, not obligation. That is the contest before Australia. Now, you saw in Angus Taylor's budget in reply, that was a statement of priorities: lower taxes, abundant cheap energy, more homes, controlled spending, renewed productivity, restored ambition, and national pride. We've done it before, we can do it again. The bruises of the past make us hungry for this fight, but we need everyone to rally. Under Angus and our Liberal team, a Liberal government will deliver for Australians. Enterprise is the answer to Labor's stagnation. Responsibility is the answer to Labor's debt. Aspiration is the answer to Labor's decline. That is the choice. That is the fight, and it's a future worth fighting for. The Liberal Party is a party of hope, aspiration and opportunity. It's a party for people who build and save and serve. It's a party for Australians who believe that tomorrow should be better than today. One party of unity and fire. A party that will fight for a fairer, freer and better Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so proud to introduce my friend and leader, the next Liberal Prime Minister of Australia, Angus Taylor.